Windows Server 2019 System Administration. Welcome back everybody. I'm Prakash Pradhan, your trainer for this entire series. In our previous video, we have discussed about your network load balance failover cluster, okay, or the failover. So in this series or in this video, we are going to see the practical implementation, how the network load balance for any website is being implemented over the cloud. So if you have missed my previous video, please go through that because all the theoretical portion actually we have discussed in our last video. So for the today's session, we are going to see practically how network load balance is installed, what are the prerequisites or what are the different situation or the criteria that you need to fulfill before you go for setting your network load balance for your website failover. Now let's see over here. I have set a one lab session over here. So we are going to have one domain controller and we have two members. That means they both are the server operating system. Okay, my network is 192.168.100 and of course they all are in the same network. It's a class C network. So if you see over here, the first what you need to do in order to implement your network load balance, you need to understand that there must be at least two member server, so that when the request is sent by the client and that request will be distributed over your two different servers, so that the load is not given only to one particular server. So that was the main concept that we discussed in our previous video. So it is a practical session for that theoretical portion that we did in our previous video. So over here now, if you see at the left hand side, this is my domain controller and both the servers are the member server. That means they are domain joined and their IP addresses are this. So there might be one question rise over here that when this client, let's say this client, it's a domain joined client over here. When this client hit the website, okay, if this client is willing to access the website that has been hosted over here or in the member server, two, okay, because we are having two servers who are going to host the website. Of course, I'm going to show you practical implementation of this one. Now there is one confusion. See, when this client hit the web address for this server and the second time another server hits or another client want to have access over that server, as per the concept of NLB, we are going to pass that request to the next server. That means server web server 2. So even if this client hits twice, in order to access any of the web content from any of these servers, the first request will go to the priority. Where if you have said priority 1, it will go to the first server. And after that, even that same client, if refresh, delete the history and try to access again the same site, the request should go over here. Now the main question over here is, how does this computer know which IP is to set? That means which IP this client is going to access in order to access the website. If you notice over here, we are having two different network IPs. That means the host IDs are completely different. So when this client 100.4 wanted to have access over the website that has been hosted over here or it's been hosted over here, so this client might get confused. So what we do now, we use a cluster IP. That means rather than using a direct IP address of this web server 1 or the web server 2, rather than that we are going to use one cluster IP. That means that cluster IP will be used actually as a exact web address IP for these two hosted domains, actually for the web servers. Okay, so in our scenario we are going to use exactly this IP address only. So they are having 192.168.100 to 103. This is the simple normal IP that is used to join the domain. It is done. Now apart from that, we are going to use one cluster IP. This cluster IP will be used in order to access any of the resources that have been hosted either in your server 1 or it may be in server 2. So this client, whenever hits the website to get access from 2 or 3, rather than using IP 2 or 3, this client is going to use one cluster IP. So that would be easy. So that if the one server is down or if one server is having the load over here, then the request will be redirected to the next server. Okay, now let's see what are the things that we are going to continue or just learn in this session. Number one, we are going to see the practical implementation of implementing your network load balance. So there are few steps that we are going to follow over here. First, we are going to install. That means we need to have a DNS. It's for the name resolution purpose. Now the next one, we are going to test this network load balance for your website. That means for the IIS. So that's why IIS has to be installed. And then in both the servers or the member server, if you notice over here, in this both the member servers, we are going to host one website having identical information. Of course, in order to make sure that both the servers are functioning, we are going to set at least one object or one information bit different than the first server, so that it can prove that when the one server is not available, the data is being accessed from the next server. And then at the fourth step, we are going to install NLB. You see, installing NLB is the last option. So after that, we are going to test whether this NLB is practically implemented in our today's session or not. So without wasting further time, so let's go to the server. I'm going to take you to the server. So I'll show you one by one. This is my root server. That means it's my domain controller. If I go to tools, Active Directory users and computers, so you'll find that we are having at least 3 members join over here. This is the member 1. It's a server. Member 2 is also server, who is going to be a part of your network load balance. And the third one is the client operating system. Of course, I've used this server to 2008, but we are going to drill this one as a client to test whether this network load balance is functioning properly or not. Okay. Now, and then I'm going to go first to your member server 1, where I'm going to install your network load balance. So for that, as I said, number 1 is the DNS. So DNS is already done over here, that we see at first. See, DNS is done. Okay. Now number 2, we are going to install the IIS in both the member server, without which the website cannot be hosted. So let's go and install IIS. So the same task has to be done in both the member server. Okay. So we'll add IIS. Okay. Okay, IIS is a role, so I'm going to install web server IIS. Okay. Next. Simple. Install. Okay, this is done in member 2. Now I'm going to do the same thing in your member 3 also, because over here also we are going to install your web server. So that's why I'm going to log on in my next member 2. This is domain join PC simply. Okay. Now here we are going to add same role. That means that is the web server role. If you remember, after installing web server role only, inetpub folder will be created or installed in your C drive, where we are going to host our site. So I'm going to add the same thing. So the same thing we are going to add over here. Next. It's a role. Of course, it's a role base. Okay, now here we are going to install the web server. So after we install this web server, inetpub folder is going to be created in your C drive, the root of C. So by the time, let's see the first server. Okay, it's installing. Let it install full in both the servers. This is our member server 2. So let it install full, and then we'll continue rest of the steps in order to see your network load balance in your any network environment. By the time, let's test in our member 2 as well. This is a member 2 where we are installing the IIS. It's taking a bit longer time, no worries. It's almost done. In between, let's test that inetpub folder is been generated in your root of C or not. Okay, let's go to C drive. I've used only one logical volume over here. Okay, it's still not done. Okay, you see over here inetpub folder is created, and over here only we are going to put our home page that we name actually index page in order to host the website for this network load balance purpose. Let's go to the first one. Now here I guess it's done. Okay, congratulations, it is installed successfully. Now we'll see the next step. Okay, after installing this IIS web server role, we need to have one website. Okay, now in order to save your time, I have created one page for you. It's a simple page, okay, having a 1 or 2 line statement. So I'd like to show you the script first. There is nothing much special because see, it's to design a website is not our work, but in order to see your network load balance, I have created one simple page. It is a one page. Okay, if I double click this page, so this page is going to display the content that is being stored over there. So let's see what is the information over here. So many OS are installed, so that's why it's taking not much time, I guess. Okay, it's a page now. See, it's been displayed. Okay, now what I have to do now, first you need to copy this page. Okay, it's our website. So this side you are going to store in your inetpub folder. I do believe that you have gone through my previous video so that you understand. And then we go to the www root and install over here. That means paste it over here. Okay, now in order to make sure that this page is now hosted over here, what we are going to do, we are going to see this via your browser. So let's go to the browser and then I'm going to test that page. Okay, let's see that. Of course, it's a port number 80, so that's why http 192. Okay, this is IP. Okay, so let's see this. So it should be able to display that page. Okay, which we just see. Congratulations, it's done. Okay, now we are going to see the next machine over here. The installation is not over yet. Okay, but from here also we can test that site. Okay, let's go to the browser and we are going to test whether that page is successfully hosted in our members server 2 or not. So let it install in between. So we'll go to the browser. Since both are the domain join member, so it should be able to display that information. So let's try that. 100.2. It should be able to extract that information since we are in the same network. See, it's displayed now. That means our work is done because it's a first site. Okay, now when this your IIS is installed in this server as well, we are going to do the same thing. So over here also I have installed or I have created one page, but over here if you notice the information, it is a second site. See, the color is also different. Now this second site page also I am going to copy and paste it in the same location. Okay, that's your inetpub www root. Okay, so let's go over there in a member 2 and we are going to do the same thing that we did in a member 1. Okay, let's go to C drive, inetpub www root and paste it over here. This is the simplest way to host a site. Okay, now so this site is also hosted. So in order to make it sure, let's not access from here. So let's go to our member server 1, and we are going to access it from there. Okay, this side, same side. So it should be able to display. So let's try it now. Okay, we'll try it, and it should be able to display as well. Now 192.168.100.3, that's a member 2 where the site is. See, it is done. Okay, now the next step that we are going to do over here in order to see the practical implementation of your network load balance. See, we have installed the DNS, we have installed the IIS, we have hosted the site as well. Now the next important work is to install the network load balance. Okay, now you do this from your member server 2 or 1, it's the same thing, it doesn't make any difference. Okay, now I'm going to go to our member server 2. Okay, then I'm going to install over here feature for your network load balance. Don't forget, network load balance is not a role, it's a feature. So let's go to next, and you'll find over here network load balance. See over here. Okay, then add it, next, and install. And the same thing has to be done in your next member server. That means member server 3 over here as well. We need to install your network load balance feature. So let's go to manage and roles. As I said already, it's not a role. We are going to select it from the feature. So go to the feature. Let's go a bit down, and then we are going to install network load balance feature over here as well. Okay, see, it's the same like your failover cluster that we have done in our previous video. Okay, where is that network load balance? Sorry, it's over here. Now in our previous video, what we did, if you remember, or if you have missed, please go through that. In your failover cluster also, we have used a cluster IP address. So over here also we are going to do the setting for the cluster IP address. Don't forget that. And that setting, either you do from the member server 2 or from the member server 3, it's the same work, because the replication will be done automatically. Okay, now it's installing, so let it install. Over here in member server 2, your network load balance feature is being successfully installed. Now only the configuration portion is left. Now before we go for the configuration, I do believe you understand in that member server 3 also network load balance feature has to be installed, otherwise it will not be able to replicate. Okay, it's same like DFS, failover cluster and all, it's the same thing. So let it install full. Okay, then I'll show you how to set your cluster IP and how to add 2 hosts or the 2 cluster, and then it will be clear to you all that how the network load balance is actually set in any websites. Actually it's the same concept. Let it install full. Okay, congratulations, now successfully installed without any error. Now as I said, this failover cluster over here, I mean to say network load balance, it can be configured either from the member server 3 or member server 2. Okay, so let's do it from the 2. Now next step is that we are going to configure the network load balance. Okay, now go to the network load balance over here, network load balance manager, and then we are going to see at the left panel there is nothing, so right click and add new cluster. Now over here I'm going to add my own IP because I'm going to be a part of this cluster. Okay, so my IP address is 192.168.100.2. If I connect, it should get connected over here. See, okay, so next. So previously actually, you know, the IP was already added, so I'm going to remove it. Okay, now this is your IP which we added just now. If you see over here priority, this priority means whichever IP I have added over here, if I set the priority 1, that means first preference will be given to this IP address in order to access your website. Okay, now go to next. Now over here you add it, you have option for this one, but we are going to do from here. Okay, we'll go to edit 100.2, that is already done. Okay, if you have to add another one, you can add it from here. Got it? Now default site started, of course we'd like to start right away only. Okay, now it's asking the cluster IP address are shared by every member. That means I told you the client is not going to access this website using 100.2 or 100.3. I have to add a cluster IP address. So I'm going to give the cluster IP address 192.168.100.200 if you remember. Okay, now done. IPv6 we don't want at this moment. Okay, already used. Okay, no problem, it is done. And then next we are going to use multicast, not unicast. Next, and here this is the important portion that you need to add. You need to add the port actually. Which port range you are going to use it. Of course, we are going to use 80 and then we'll use the 443 as well. Okay, 8080 and affinity, we don't need this. Okay, range, okay, no problem. Sometimes it gives error. We'll add it again, it will accept. 80, port number 8080. Okay, affinity none, we don't want. Okay, it's saying it will not overlap, no problem. Multiple host, affinity, we are going to use protocol TCP UDP both. Okay, so let's add it first 443 and then we'll add it second one. It's not allowing, no problem, we'll add it again. Okay, we'll just edit otherwise. Edit. Okay, 8080 affinity, done. And we are going to do the same thing for port number 443 as well, because who knows that we're going to use HTTPS. In that case, affinity none. So multiple host, it's done. Okay, now it's just that much. See, our cluster IP is 200. Don't forget that. Okay, now finish. So over here, if you notice, there is only one member. Okay, it's not done yet, it's loading. It takes few seconds or it might take few minutes in our case. So it's going to load it over here. Okay, now see, status pending, it's loaded. So congratulations, it's done. Now we are going to add another one member as well. Okay, so we are going to add your host to cluster. That means the second member. So that second member is 192.168.100. You remember 3. So we are going to add both, because both the servers are going to be a part of your cluster IP actually. So they are going to act as your network load balance. So that's why both the server has to be added over here. Okay, now the first one it took less time, the second one it might take few seconds. So bear with me. So let it bring it that PC as well over here in an interface name. Then we'll continue and see that your network load balance is done. And when the one server goes down, or even two different clients, they are going to access this website using your cluster IP address. So client will find the same information and will try to refresh it and will find two different pages are functioning at the same time. But in a real world scenario, don't forget, the informations are identical, informations are same. Okay, so for example, let's say from one of your city you hit google.com. The page you find in your next city, your friend hits the same website, they will also find the same page. It's not like that the one who's sitting in a one corner of the country hits the google.com, find one different page from the different cluster, and another one, your friend hits the same IP address to the same website in other corner of your state or other corner of your same country, will find a different information. So that is not possible. So that is the concept of your cluster IP actually. Okay, and the informations will be the same. For our testing purpose, we have set two different pages, but both the pages are being, member of your cluster, so the information will be different over here. So congratulations, that is also done. Okay, next, and then it's the same thing. We're going to add it over here. It's the same thing done. Okay, you don't need to add anyone. Go to next. So port number, it's already done. If you want to add it over here or you want to edit it, so it's giving you the information and you don't have to do anything over here. It will be done automatically for us. Okay, it's done. Now finish. See, this one is pending, so it has to be converged properly. So it might take few seconds, so bear with me. Let's see when the IP gets listed over here, then we'll see practically that your cluster IP is functioning. Now the client is not going to use any of this IP. That means 100.2 or 100.3. Client is not going to use that. So we are going to use the cluster IP. So let it come full, then we'll go for the another one operating system where I have already installed over here as a client. Okay, it's my client. This is my client operating system. So if I go to the browser and I try to access the site, let's see. I'm going to access the site using my first member server. Okay, that member server is http 192.168.100.2. So let's see that page is displayed. Whereas if I go over here and I write 3, the page will also get displayed. But now we have said that we are going to use the cluster IP. Okay, then we'll refresh and see from which server we are going to get the information. That is only your concept of your network load balance. Okay, so let's see if it has done. We are doing from server 2. Okay, it's pending. Let it come full. It might take few seconds. So by the time, let's try from the member server whether we are able to access that site from the cluster IP or not. Okay, so let's go to the member server. That means it's a client operating system for us. Let's go to the browser. Now we are going to access that website using a NLB. So that is your 100.200. Congratulations. See, your network load balance is successfully done. That means the set priority was done to the first website, if you remember. Okay, now if I hit again and again, okay, information will get displayed from the same page because your cluster 2 is not activated so far. So let's go to our setting. So it's still pending. Okay, now it takes few seconds more. Okay, it might take few seconds more, and then what happens? Both will be converged. So after that, whenever any client, okay, whenever any client your hits, okay, whenever any of your client hits to that cluster IP, in that case, what's going to happen? First request will be given to this page only. That's a set priority is 1. And the same client, when hits to the same site using this cluster IP, at that time you will notice that information will get displayed actually from this page, from over here. But at this moment, it's taking a bit longer time in order to converge. So that's why it's taking time. But it will be done easily. Okay, so I do believe it was easy for you to understand how this network load balance work. Okay, and if you find it fruitful, if it was okay, it was easy going for you, please do like and subscribe. Thank you.